Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to the State of Scottish Football. It is your weekend preview show, and we're also going to be reviewing the European draws for our three Scottish teams playing European football this season. It's been a long time, I think, Dave, since we've been able to say three teams competing in Europe through to Christmas, but it's exciting. Some big draws in there, some big names coming over to Scotland to be playing football. But first of all, Dave, it's Friday. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well. The end of a long week, and pleasure to be on with your fine self once again. By the way, if you're wondering what it was, it's the notification to tell me that the State of Scottish Football was on YouTube. So there we go. It's me telling me that we're officially live on YouTube. That's all fine and well. But no, very well this Friday evening, and good for Scottish clubs to be in Europe. Celtic Rangers in the Champions League, terrific result for Rangers, and obviously Celtic already secured their place after winning the league, and then Hearts in the Conference League, and unlucky last night, obviously. But three sides in the European group stages, and fantastic to see.
Yeah, we'll get to all of that over the next hour or so. And a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us. As Dave says, we're live on YouTube just now. Get your comments in. Let us know your thoughts on the European draws. Let us know your predictions for the games. We're going to go through all 6 of the Cinch Premiership games. But first of all, let's start with the champions. Celtic are away at Tannadice this weekend. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. Interesting one this, Dave. I seen Sky made another Pigs Era things the other day, saying that Celtic would be coming up against Dundee. Instead, Dundee are playing tonight. It's their, basically their neighbours right across the street, Dundee United, that Celtic will be facing. Again, if you're putting this one on the coupon, as always, gamble responsibly. But Celtic are 1-6. The draw is 7-1. And Dundee United, heavily outside favourites at 14-1. Don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody, Dave, considering Dundee United's start to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's nothing wrong with United, but any stretch of imagination there is a wonderful place. But I think you'd rather be at Tannadice playing Premiership duty, and Dundee United else just one big time. But Celtic, I think it's an opportunity for them to go and put on another professional performance. They've done well on the road so far this season. They've done well like Kilmarnock and all that. So I think it's a good opportunity for Ange Postecoglou to maintain his fine run on the road. They've got the balance right. Celtic, where they've been at home, been comfortable at home, and then when they've been away from home, where teams are more compact, teams are a lot more organised, and teams make it more of a cup final because they know they've got home advantage. Ange Postecoglou was still passed with flying colours, and he still went to these places and still came out on top. And I think Sunday, Jack Ross have demanded a higher work ethic from Dundee United, but I still think Celtic have enough about them to go on and win the game and be professional. And I think it's not a dress rehearsal for a European football by any stretch of imagination, but I think it's an opportunity for Celtic players to go put themselves in the shop window and say, Ange, I want to play in the Champions League, I want to play in Champions League football, I want to see what I can deliver for you on a regular basis.
And speaking of the Champions League, let's take a look at the draw that Celtic were given on yesterday, although it feels as if it only just finished considering how long it took. So Celtic will face Real Madrid, the current holders of the Champions League, the 14-time winners. RB Leipzig, a team they've come up against in quite recent history, and a team that's familiar with Celtic, Shakhtar Donetsk. First of all, Dave, what was your initial reactions to Celtic's group?
Yeah, I think it's a good group sorry for Celtic. I mean, I think it's a group, Colin, where you look at it and say it's not a group of death, but it's a group where Celtic can go and take points off in these sides. When Real Madrid have struggled when they've been at home against lesser opposition, Sheriff Tiraspol springs to mind a few years ago when they went to the Bernabeu and went and won with Real Madrid. And Real Madrid have went and struggled against sides who, let's be honest, Celtic would easily beat comfortably on their given day, and they wouldn't struggle against them. So Real Madrid's not an impossible task by any stretch of imagination. Leipzig, I mean, we see it with Rangers last season, how Rangers can go and beat Leipzig, and that will obviously help in terms of Rangers getting to the Europa League final. So Leipzig, that's a hard game, but it's one where Celtic can go and get some points as well. Shakhtar Donetsk, obviously Celtic don't have the best of records against the Ukrainians, but again, it's an opportunity for Celtic to go and get some points. And I mean, Celtic Park will be hugely important and vital in terms of how Celtic go in the Champions League, because we all know how much the 12th man can play an important role at Celtic Park. We've seen it when Messi and Co came to town and Tony Watt banged in that fantastic striker, and look how Tony Watt's career evolved after that. So, yeah, it shows that these things can happen. There's some winnable games in there for Celtic, yeah.
I don't disagree with you at all there. Obviously, Real Madrid know what happens the last time they came to Glasgow. They kind of went away with their tails between their legs, and although it was only a pre-season friendly at Ibrox, but they were still defeated. Leipzig last time they were at Celtic Park, it was a Moussa Dembele goal late on to secure the 3 points for Celtic. And Shakhtar Donetsk, it's been a while, but obviously with everything that's going on in the world right now, it's very difficult to see what kind of team Shakhtar Donetsk are going to be able to put together. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, they've lost a lot of their star players over the last sort of 12 months or so. Players departing all over the shop, really. And it looks as if it's traditionally going to be just a team of Ukrainians that line up for Shakhtar. And, you know, traditionally they've had a flavour of Brazil through that team, Dave. They seem to bring over all these players from South America, but it doesn't seem to be the case now. And going by the bookies, and again, as I say, gamble responsibly, Celtic 11-1 to get out of that group, and I think that's a decent bet. I mean, as you say, Celtic Park's going to be very, very important for these 3 games. If Celtic can get anywhere near 9 to 12 points out of that group, they could be coming out of that and getting into the last 16.
I think it would be big for Ange Postecoglou if he qualified it the group, in all honesty, because Neil Lennon, well, that was a Neil Lennon masterclass where they did okay, but never materialised into much, apart from obviously the campaign where they played Milan. I think it was they played AC Milan. That one. Brendan Rodgers, renowned for doing very, very well domestically, but struggled in the Champions League stage or struggled on the European stage. I think this is massive for Ange Postecoglou. If Ange Postecoglou can have a successful European campaign, he's obviously done well domestically, but I think a lot of Celtic managers get defined in European runs. I think this is massive for Ange Postecoglou. I think he's got a terrific opportunity with the group he's been given there.
Yeah, and I think there's still, we've still got 4 or 5 days left of the transfer window. I wouldn't be surprised if Celtic go in, now that they know who they're coming up against, and maybe invest a bit further after the signing of Said Haksabanovic earlier on in the week on a 5-year deal from Rubin Kazan for €1.7 million. I still think there's maybe a bit more money left in the coffers, Dave, and I wouldn't be surprised if Celtic go and strengthen between now and the window closing.
Absolutely. I think Celtic have got a good strength and depth at this precise moment in time, but 1 or 2 isn't a bad thing, sorry. And if you can sign the right players in the right areas, then that's obviously a good thing. But and obviously, Ange Postecoglou will have to use the both domestic and Champions League to full fruition, because you can't just be playing the same 11 all the time. You'll find it'll be of benefit maybe on a Saturday domestically when you're going to Pittodrie and Tannadice and Fir Park and playing at home against these sides, but then you'll find yourself struggling in the European stage, especially with all the games coming in short proximity this year because of the World Cup.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it's going to be important as Celtic play 2 games a week that the squad is fresh, it is rotated, and you have that quality and depth coming off the bench or coming on to play the sort of league games in between. Speaking of the league games, as we'll head back to Tannadice for this one on Sunday. Dundee United coming in this with a bit of a crisis in their ranks. They've basically had a really poor start to the season. You could take that as far back as you want. I mean, the goalkeeping situation really hasn't been helped. They brought in Eriksson last week to replace Brigitte? Brigitte, sorry. And it didn't really seem to work as they lost 3-0 to St Mirren, a double from Curtis Main. And Jack Ross, there have been rumours circling around the city of Discovery that Jack Ross's coat's on a bit of a shikly peg, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a good look for Jack Ross at all. And I think he needs a big performance on Sunday. And I see he was in the press conference today saying the players will give him a high work ethic and high standard, which is all fine and well. That's some of the stuff you'd be expecting Jack Ross on a manager under that pressure to be saying in a press conference like that. But I think Dundee United need a big performance across the park, and I think the likes of your Dylan Levitts and Ian Harkes have a big game about them on Sunday. Now, Dundee United were renowned last season for being compact and being organised against the big Glasgow teams. Likes of Edwards and Mulgrew had that bit of organisation and that bit of diligence about their play last year, but I think you can tell that they look all over the place. They look lacklustre defensively. Ryan Edwards has been a good captain for Dundee United Football Club, but you can tell that he's got a different aspect to his game this year, which is a little bit frustrating. And I've seen Dundee United fans call for him to be stripped of the captaincy, which I find a little bit harsh, but I can understand why they're giving that level of opinion as well. And when you look at it, I seen a debate on Twitter this week about who should start and goal on Sunday. And a lot of people are going for Progetti to start goals again, which I find not astonishing, but I find very, very brave indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a kind of difficult start to the season for Dundee United, and a game against the champions is not going to make it any easier. But I guess it is these kind of games where you see a lot of players step up and they put in their best performances. It's not a criticism of players, but it does seem to be that when one of the big teams comes into town, then a lot of players seem to find that extra 10%, whether that be to put themselves in the shop window or whether it's just to prove that they can cut it at that level. It's just the way sort of football goes. So I'm expecting to see some bigger performances from the players that you mentioned, like Harkes and Levitt, even McGrath. I'd expect to see a performance out of Stephen Fletcher, maybe even Tony Watt. So this could be a bit of a tricky one for Celtic as they go for... sorry.
On you go.
I was just going to say, as Celtic go for their 5th win out of 5 to start the season, going to try and protect that 100% record. Depending on the results on Saturday, they could see themselves looking to try and open up that 2-point gap once again at the top of the table. Dave, I'm going to go in my prediction for this one. I think Dundee United, considering that there's a kind of unsteadiness at the back, I think if you get the likes of Maeda and Jota, who are really on form at the minute, Kyogo is scoring plenty of goals, as is Giakoumakis. You've got this added incentive of Haksabanovic coming in, meaning that the wingers are going to have to up their game as well, or kind of fear being dropped. David Turnbull had his best game of the season last year at Dundee United. It just kind of adds up to be a kind of awkward afternoon for them, and I'm going to go with a 3-0 victory for the Hoops.
Yeah, I was going for 3-0 prediction, and I'm going to stick with that 3-0 Celtic. I just think they'll be comfortable, and I can't see Dundee United asking much questions in all honesty.
Just before we move on, Dundee United, let's stick with them. Obviously, coming off that horrible defeat to AZ Alkmaar, the 7-0 away defeat. Looking at their sort of next run of fixtures, they've got Livingston in the League Cup. They're away to Motherwell, then they're away to they're at home to Hibs, and then away to Dundee. They're away to Rangers after that. It's a tough run of games to go to Livingston, where it's that plastic pitch. They've got Celtic away at Motherwell, who not many people had a lot of faith in, but they've had a great start to the season. If they can keep that going, then they've got Hibs starting to maybe come back into it now. Martin Boyle's returned, and then obviously having to go to Ibrox. I really think if Jack Ross doesn't pick up maybe 4 or 5 points out of that run, then when it gets to October, when the sort of next game is after that, which is at home to St Johnstone, he might not be in charge of the team.
Yeah, when you look at all the games that you've mentioned there, Colin, that's all against sides that are far higher than Dundee United at this precise moment in time in the form table, which goes to show you how difficult a task it's going to be for Jack Ross's side. And I'm going to put this out there publicly. I think Jack Ross needs a performance and a response as soon as possible, because I feel like Dundee United, as your management tenure gone as far as I'm concerned, because you've seen it today in England with Alex Neil, and it's going to be an interesting one with him joining Stoke. And you just hope that Jack Ross doesn't fall under the Sunderland trapdoor again, and you just hope that this doesn't become like another poor job as far as Jack Ross is concerned. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves for Jack Ross. I just think he needs a response soon, and there's no better way to do it than get a result in the next few weeks.
Yeah, some predictions coming in here. Patrick James Simpson, 4-1 to Celtic, United rot to continue. I mean, it's not the kind of game you want to be getting into on the form that you're in just now, but we'll see how that one goes. As we said, Celtic heavy favourites for that tie. We're going to head back to Glasgow, and we have the game at Ibrox on Saturday. It is Rangers coming up against Ross County. Again, if you're putting this one on the coupon, it's 1-7 for Rangers, 15-2 for the draw, and Ross County are 16-1. Morelos is suspended for this game, however, John Lundstrom is available. For Ross County, they'll be without Ross Callaghan and Jack Baldwin after their retrospective red cards from the disciplinary panel this week. Look, Dave, very difficult one for Ross County here. Going to Ibrox, it's always a tricky task no matter what kind of Rangers side you're coming up against. You're coming up against a side now that'll be buoyant after that 1-0 victory over in Eindhoven on Wednesday night. And I don't think there's much kind of hope for Ross County, unfortunately, in this game.
Based on what you said there, no Callaghan and no Baldwin, that makes the task even worse, or even more insurmountable as far as Ross County are concerned. I mean, it's going to be a difficult task, and they need to create a different game plan. And it'll be an interesting concept to see when the Ross County team line comes out tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see how they play and how they set up and how they're organised, because Ross County sides are usually organised. They're usually take the games to teams, and they usually have a no fear mentality when they play like Rangers and Celtic. But tomorrow, without Callaghan and Baldwin, obviously, when you look at Jack Baldwin, he's a player that has a lot of physique about him in the air, and when they play against a side like Rangers, they're going to miss his intelligence defensively. And Callaghan is good in terms of getting forward and getting into good areas, and he's a big part of how Ross County have failed in the last couple of years. So he's going to be a massive miss for Mocky Mackay's side as well. So there's that, and it's going to be an interesting one to say the least. But I think from a Rangers point of view, they'll be looking at this tomorrow and saying, get some more confidence in us, create a statement, create a marker. They'll need to bounce back in the best possible fashion. It's a test of mentality, I think, as far as I'm concerned, Colin, because when they played at Hibs last weekend, they conceded in the 92nd minute equaliser, courtesy of, first and foremost, their two players get sent off, Lundstrom and Morelos, and then Josh Campbell banging in that equaliser, and it tells you that when you give teams a sniff, teams can bite back in their day. So I think it's a big test of Rangers' mentality tomorrow.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think Rangers have maybe shown is their only weakness so far is that susceptibility to conceding goals. We've seen it already in Europe. We saw it last week against Hibs. Apart from that, they've had a reasonably solid start to the season. The goal that they conceded against Livingston being the only other goal that they've conceded in the league so far. So it's one of those ones, I think, depending on who they come up against and looking at the Ross County forward line, I can't really see them breaching that Rangers defence too much. But let's take a look at Rangers Champions League draw. They are in Group A alongside Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli and Rangers. Oh, sorry, well, they're not up against Rangers. The Rangers are in that group. Dave, initial thoughts on that draw. How do you see that one panning out for the Jers?
I think in comparison to Celtic, I think it's a tougher group for Rangers. Now there's some lucrative ties there, and obviously we've got an all-British tie with Liverpool, so I'm pretty sure a lot of the Rangers fans will travel up to Liverpool whenever that tie comes around, and vice versa, of course, when Liverpool make the trip to Ibrox. So that's going to be a pretty exciting one to say the least. And Liverpool haven't started the Premier League campaign that well, but I think Premier League's completely different to Champions League. You raise your game. If you're a bigger side, of course, I think you raise your game in the Champions League. I think you Champions League like it's the Queen Mother looking at her birthday and treating it like a birthday cake, making sure she treats it like a treat. You make sure that you take these opportunities with full perfection. And I think for Jurgen Klopp, as much as they haven't started the Premier League campaign that well and they were poor on Monday night against Man United, you'll look at the Rangers game and go, professional performance, create a statement, get 3 points, and that'll be that. For Rangers, there's an opportunity to make a statement here because they've got Ajax, Liverpool, and Napoli, who are arguably three fantastic sides in their own right. Ajax are accustomed to getting to the latter stages of Champions League football, or indeed to the latter stages of Europa League football. And Napoli is always a strong side. So it's a hard group for Rangers in comparison to the group that Celtic got. And I can't see Rangers qualify from this group. And I know this is a fan media chat, but I honestly can't see Rangers qualifying out of this group. Third place will be the best as far as Rangers are concerned.
Do you know, looking at it, if you were to try and put it into context of where Rangers can pick up points, right? You would start with Ajax and say that Ajax were beaten by PSV 5-3. at the start of the season, and Rangers were able to beat PSV over 2 legs. So there's potential there, maybe at Ibrox, considering their current record over the last couple of years there. Liverpool, very difficult one. Obviously, Champions League finalists last year, second place in the Premier League. Very, very strong team. Even though they're missing quite a few players just now, the players that they've got to come back in, you're still talking about your Diaz's, your Salahs, your Firminos, players like that. I mean, genuinely on their day, Liverpool could put 5 or 6 past absolutely any team, never mind Rangers. So that one's going to be a very difficult task. Napoli's one that I'm not 100% certain on. Obviously, they've got big Victor Osimhen up front, who's a fantastic striker. I'm surprised he's still there, to be perfectly honest. Could Rangers get something at Ibrox against them? I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. Again, Napoli top of Serie A after 2 games. They're kind of free scoring at the minute. They've got 9 goals in 2 games. It's a very difficult draw, as you say. It's probably a harder draw overall than Celtic's, despite the fact that obviously Celtic drew Real Madrid. But 3rd place, it's possible. 2nd place, I think it's probably just a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you look at that group, Liverpool, I think will carry a lot of quality, as will Ajax and Napoli. I think Napoli, as you've rightly alluded to, have started the Serie A campaign very, very well. And it's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot of comments coming in here, Colin, about how Rangers can go and take the game to likes of Napoli and Ajax at Ibrox. And I think Napoli and Ajax in particular could struggle at Ibrox. I mean, I agree with what AGS is saying here. I think we've seen it last season, like Dortmund and Leipzig, and Braga's maybe not the same bracket as those German sides, but we've seen how the big sides can go to Ibrox and completely struggle to get results, and how the top man of Rangers can obviously go and help them get results. But also at the same time as well, there's a few Glasgow derbies mixed around about the time that Rangers and Celtic, for that precise matter, will play these games. It's going to be just to see how we get the balance right, especially with loads of big games coming up.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see between the teams that who they'll bring in between now and the transfer window closing, obviously with that Champions League jackpot. Patrick McLaughlin saying it's amazing to see last season's Champions League finalists both head into Glasgow. I mean, that is just the glamour of playing in the Champions League, isn't it, Dave? I mean, seeing all these fantastic players, we've mentioned some of them already. We're talking about Salah, Robertson, Osimhen, players like that. We're in the Real Madrid team, you could name any one of them. Even at Leipzig, you're looking at guys like Nkunku, Werner. There's quality coming here, and that's the level that both Celtic and Rangers want to be playing at for the next couple of years.
Yeah, what I will say as well, in addition to that, is I think the result on Wednesday at PSV can't be undermined either, because they were playing a side with quality. They were playing a guy that's playing for Man United, Sergio somebody?
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously been with Man United, which were a good side for as far as United are concerned. But there's a lot of quality coming to Glasgow, not just Ibrox or Parkhead. There's a lot of quality coming to Ibrox. You've got Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson, Calvin Ramsey coming to Ibrox. You've got Napoli.
That was a bit of a stretch there, Dave. I like that, but it was a bit of a stretch putting Calvin Ramsey in amongst all those players. People that maybe finished second in the Ballon d'Or and stuff like that. But carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Napoli have got their quality strikers, and they obviously carry a lot of finesse and a lot of stamina and a lot of quality in the final third. As to Ajax, they obviously play a Johan Cruyff way as they usually do. They obviously carry a lot of quality as well. Obviously, with Real Madrid, you've got like some Modric and Eden Hazard. Maybe Hazard has off the boil a little bit, but still carry a lot of quality. And of course, I can't go on this show and not mention Karim Benzema, who's arguably one of the best strikers in the world at the moment.
Yep, I love Benzema, fantastic striker. He does it consistently year after year as well. So it's going to be a difficult one for both teams, but I mean, possibility of getting some points and obviously some lovely nights here in Glasgow. Sean Ross coming in to say, Dave Ramsey, come on. that was a stretch, mate. That was a stretch. Let's get back to league action. Some cinch. Rangers versus Ross County. I'm going to go for Rangers to win quite comfortably. I'm going for a 4-0 victory.
3-0 Rangers.
3-0 to Rangers. that will see them go top of the league. Well, for less than 24 hours maybe, as Celtic don't kick off until Sunday. Now, there's one other team that is still involved in European action this season, and it is Hearts. Despite losing 1-0 to Zurich last night in the Europa League playoff, they dropped into the UEFA Conference League, and we'll take a look at their draw in a minute. First of all, Dave, defeat last night for Hearts. Not that many people got to see it because the BBC Scotland feed cut out just as Zurich scored.
It's okay, because I didn't watch the game either. I just watched the highlights. I was busy doing the boxing training, which you'll notice about the fitness. I'm surprised nobody's touching that so far.
Not yet, anyway. Not yet, Dave. Not yet. We'll get there.
Aye, exactly. No, on Hearts, I thought they were fantastic in the first half. They were very, very good in the opening 50 to 55 minutes last night, and they created their own authority in the game. But the only thing that was letting them down was the fact they didn't score, and that was a disappointing aspect from Robbie Nielsen's side. And then obviously George Grant puts in that dive, and I think George Grant has every entitlement to appeal for it, but he was never going to get away with it, and that was the bottom line. And the reason why I don't think he was going to get away with it, I don't know if you agree with me here, Colin, but I think he gets away with it in Scotland to an extent, and Scotland without VAR, but I think he doesn't get away with it in European football now. I must say, obviously VAR didn't come into consideration last night because obviously that doesn't come into play until the Europa League group stages. In the same token as well, European referees are totally different to Scottish referees. We scrutinise Scottish referees on a consistent basis on this show and other shows and various podcasts on European soil. And this one I thought it was a penalty, but I looked at it in a second angle. It's a clear dive, and Grant had to go as far as I'm concerned. But I thought Robbie Nielsen papered over the caps a little bit when he was speaking to the press after the game about that specific incident, and. Grant Orwell let us club down, but then after that, we should have got a bit of blood. They sniffed it and got the goal, and that's seen them through. And what I will say is, absolutely fantastic atmosphere when Zurich got that goal. I think if that happened in Scottish football, when I say Scottish football, I mean domestically, I think the SFA would be having quite a few words with a few people.
And obviously, we don't condone the actions of the Zurich fans attacking Craig Gordon with the missiles last night as well. That's completely out of order. But yeah, I mean, not as out of order as BBC Scotland's feed, mind you, because that was about 10-15 minutes before we got that back up and running. Look, for me, the best thing that could have happened to Hearts last night, to be perfectly honest, is to have dropped into that Conference League, because I think if they'd have made it into the Europa League, they just weren't prepared for it. Whereas with the Conference League, and taking a look at this draw, which we're just about to bring up, I think they've got every chance of getting some points, if not out of the group, to be perfectly honest, Dave. Let's take a look at it here. Istanbul, Bashikar, Fiorentina, that's the glamour tie that they're looking forward to, and RFS Riga from Latvia as well. That RFS Riga, for anyone that isn't aware, is the team that were facing Linfield last night. And in comedic circumstances, Linfield were knocked out in the 121st minute of their tie. Well, I said knocked out. They were put into penalties in the 121st minute of their tie. They broke forward a 3-on-1 attack, leading the tie on aggregate at this point. Square it, and it goes straight into the goalkeeper. He plays it out to his midfielder. They go long. The cross comes over, and a defender puts it in his own net. Linfield then go out on penalties. They could have been the first Northern Irish side to make the group stages of any European competition. But, I mean, luck was clearly not on their side last night. Instead, RFS Riga take over that spot in Hearts' group. Looking at that, Dave, I'm thinking if they're on a par with Linfield, then I fancy Hearts to beat them at home. I also fancy Hearts to try and get something away from home. Fiorentina, it'll all depend on how serious they take the competition. This is not the competition they want to be in. They do not want to be in the Conference League. They want to be pushing for a Champions League spot in Serie A. How serious are they going to take it? Istanbul Bashikar, obviously, they'll look at this as a chance to maybe get a European trophy. They've brought in Mesut Ozil, so that's another big player making the move over to Scotland to play this summer. I don't know quite, but I think it could be between Hearts and Fiorentina, to be perfectly honest, for that second spot. I think Istanbul's going to take it very seriously. Fiorentina, I can't see them taking it seriously at all. I fancy Hearts and Fiorentina to go for that second spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm on my phone at this precise moment in time for one reason and one reason only, because we need to bring up a certain player in just a minute. But let's go on to this specific matter first. RFS is a completely winnable game indeed for Hearts. I mean, Onefield didn't have a better opportunity than what they did last night. Obviously, they had that great chance, which didn't come to fruition, and RFS went on and won the game. And if the task was off a Latvian football, I must say, but disappointment all the same for Northern Irish football and indeed for Onefield. So, yeah, disappointing, but I'm expecting the Hearts to pick up 6 points out of 6 because RFS are probably, I'll give them a Scottish comparison, they're probably a Ross County. Is that probably fair to say?
I don't know. I'd maybe see them as a championship side.
Right, okay, that's fair enough. So, yeah, when you look at that, I think Hearts are expected to get 6 points out of 6 from that. When you look at Istanbul, Başakşehir, that's there you go, Başakşehir. They've got Al Bill playing for them, Colin, and he must be a fantastic player, Al Bill. They've got Al Bill for Brazil.
So for those, you guys will not understand that. We were looking at some of the players that were potentially coming to Scotland as part of the group draws in our WhatsApp chat. And Graham, who's normally on the show on a Wednesday and Monday, he highlighted the Brazilian named Bill. And if you're a Brazilian named Bill, I don't know how good you actually are, because, I mean, usually you get the Inos and the sort of the O kind of sounding towards the end of the name. He just get Bill. So I don't know how good you're going to be, but I did look him up. He actually came from Shakhtar Donetsk this summer, so I wonder how good he might actually be. I'm just going to bring this point up from Patrick McLaughlin here. I think Fiorentina might take it seriously as they're never winning the title, and John McCauley agreeing with him, saying Fiorentina won't take it seriously after watching Roma win it. Well, here's the thing. I mean, what do you get out of this? So you're guaranteed the Europa League spot if you win the competition, right? So obviously, and again, it's a chance to win a European trophy. Everybody would take that pretty seriously. However, considering the start that Fiorentina's had to the campaign, they've got 1 win and 1 draw. I think the Serie A this season is one of those seasons that it's absolutely anybody's trophy to win this year. I think there could be 4 or 5 teams really going for that title this year, and Fiorentina could be in amongst the mix if they continue to keep their good start going. Obviously, they brought in Luka Jovic from Real Madrid this summer, so they're really going for it as well. And I think when you look at the signings that a lot of the Serie A teams have made, they know that it's an open title this year, and it could be one of the most exciting leagues to watch. With that in mind, if you're going to be playing a Thursday night and travelling to the likes of Latvia, and no offence to anybody who's from there, but travelling to Gorky on a Thursday night, ahead of maybe a big game against Juventus or one of the Milan teams on a Sunday, I could see them not playing necessarily their full-strength squad.
Yeah, they'll probably play the young guns. They'll probably have a balance between playing young, youth with experience. They'll probably give some 17 and 18-year-olds a chance to play in those types of teams. And they might find themselves coming up unstuck. I mean, we've seen it this season time and time again, because I remember, I think it was Leicester that were touted to go win the Europa Conference League in the quarter-final stage last season, and they came up short against a side that they were expected to go and win against. So it shows that shocks can happen in the Conference League, and that's the beauty behind the Conference League. It's sides will go and play in the Conference League expected to go win with ease, pass with flying colours, and they end up coming up short. And for Hearts, I think it's a no pressure environment for them. So I think it's an opportunity to put Scottish football on the map for them. It's an opportunity to go and get some big results, because Istanbul and Fiorentina, Istanbul, for clarification, are finished 4th in Turkish League last year, behind a pitiful Galatasaray, who finished 14th, I think it was, and Besiktas finished 5th, which goes to show you how it's quite a competitive league, the Turkish League. But at the same time as well, you look at Istanbul, it's a terrific opportunity for Hearts to go and win. So if Hearts can go and win the head-to-heads, they've got a terrific opportunity of progression through.
Yeah, just on the thing about Roma last season as well, you've got to remember that Roma team didn't necessarily take it overly seriously until they got into the latter stages. You only have to look at that result against Bodo Glimt, where they lost, 6-7-1, something along those lines. In the group stages, I think teams like Fiorentina might not necessarily go gung-ho. I think you might see quite a mixed approach from these teams, with the thing that they're believing that they just have enough to get past teams like Hearts and RFS. But when you get a team at Tynecastle, if you get an atmosphere like you had last night, and Hearts step it up, I know they're looking to bring in some new signings ahead of this transfer window closing. There's every chance that Hearts could do this. So good luck to the Jambos on their not Champions League, Conference League draw. But back to the game on Sunday at Tynecastle. If you're putting this one on the coupon, Hearts are 11-17. The draw is 11-4. St Johnstone 19-4. St Johnstone had a pretty poor start to the season. 1 win and 4. Callum Davidson saying they're looking to bring in a couple of strikers before the transfer window closes. I think that's something that they need, Dave. I can't see anybody really banging the goals in for them, and I think they'll struggle again this weekend. I fancy Hearts to bounce back from that one last night, and I think that they will. I'm going to go with a 3-1 victory.
3-0. 3-0 Hearts.
3-0 Hearts. John McCauley coming in to say Hearts can't beat Zurich, but you think you can head to Turkey and win. Look, John, I don't disagree with you there, but I mean, stranger things have certainly happened, and we'll see how we get on later on in the campaign. Now, that's the 3 European sides covered. We're halfway through our predictions for this weekend. Again, a warm welcome to anyone who's joining us here on YouTube. Next up, we're heading up to the northeast for a game between Aberdeen and Livingston. Again, this one for the coupon is 5-7 for Aberdeen, 13-5 the draw, and a tasty 4-1 for Livingston. A Livingston side who, when you look at it, have had a fairly inconsistent start, 2 wins and 4. Aberdeen bouncing back to have the exact same record, to be fair. After that Lathan Clarkson free-kick wonder goal against St Johnstone last week. So these two teams sort of comparable in form so far this season. Aberdeen on paper should be the favourites, and you can see that with the predictions. But Dave, I think, again, this is where Aberdeen's defence is going to get tested. The game against Motherwell, they come up against a guy like Kevin Van Veen, and he caused them a lot of problems. That's where Motherwell got the joy, and they won 3-2. This time, they're coming up against the Livingston side, who are physical, who are going to take the game to them. They've obviously got the big boy up front. Remind me his name before I make a pig's ear of myself again.
Joe
Nubley, who's had a great start to the season. And then you've got guys like Omienga and even Obalaye from corners as well. So this is a massive test, I think, for Jim Goodwin's Aberdeen side in that defence, whether it be Liam Scales or Robbie McCrory that plays in its centre half. We'll need to see who's fit on Saturday. But yeah, Dave, this could be a tasty fixture up in the northeast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting concept to see where Aberdeen are at just now. I mean, Aberdeen are expected to go win these games, but Livingston has a good record at Pittodrie in the last few years. I think Aberdeen won in the Scottish Cup against the Rams after extra time, and it wasn't impressive by any stretch of imagination. In fact, that was Stephen Glass's first game in charge of Aberdeen when they beat Livingston, and the rest was history as far as that was concerned. So there you go. But I think it's a big test for Aberdeen, this one. I mean, they're up against New Boys you've touched upon. It'll be interesting to see how the backline get on against a physical figure like New Boy, because in terms of Aberdeen, they've been quite structured so far, but against Livingston, they're chasing the back four about, and McCrory obviously playing centre-half and never materialising the way Aberdeen wanted it to. So playing Stuart Scales, they'll get a very good test. Probably tomorrow against Livingston when they play against somebody like Newboy. And I think Bruce Anderson might play tomorrow as well, considering it's his former club. And Bruce Anderson normally gets wound up for these types of games, especially because it's against his former club. And There was a bit of animosity when he left under McInnes and Stephen. No, when he left under Stephen Glass, pardon me. So we'll just see how he gets on in that regard. Obviously, he'll want to prove another point in that regard. But as for Livingston, they can go into this one and look at the bounce back from last weekend, because last weekend was disappointing. It was a disappointing game in all aspects, because if you look at it, there wasn't much talking points. Obviously, the talking points were Livingston sending off and the penalty decision, which obviously Motherwell got. It was a controversial hardball, to say the least, but Van Veen tucked it away and it was 3 points for Motherwell. But obviously, look at the spawn back from that, and they're looking for a better showing, both in terms of the entertainment product and obviously the fact that they'll want to get turn 0 points at either a point or 3 points. So, from Livingston's point of view, they're looking at this in an entertainment fashion. Aberdeen, they're looking at this in an entertainment fashion as well, because they've been lying and waiting Clarkson lately. Fantastic strike against St Mirren, which, had it not gone in, would have flown into the North Sea. And then a fantastic free kick at McDermott Park last Saturday, which flew into the top left corner. And if it hadn't went to the top left corner, was definitely hitting an Aberdeen fan clean in the face. So, yeah, Leighton Clarkson's definitely been pulling up with the goods lately. So it's going to be an interesting one. And I think the strikers will have a big part to play in this one. Miovski for Aberdeen and Newboy for Livingston.
Yeah, Miovski's sort of been quiet over the last couple of weeks, but I don't really think he's had the service that he was getting in the sort of earlier stages of the season. Livingston, obviously, off the back of victories over Dundee United and Hibs, lost to Motherwell last week, as you were saying. This one, for me, I think this could be the match of the weekend, to be perfectly honest, because I think a win for either side kind of determines where they see themselves this season, whether Livingston can get the 3 points and believe that they could push for top six, and Aberdeen can see whether their revival is continuing to hit the right path or not. So this one for me, potentially my game of the weekend. It's a hard one to predict, because normally you'd look at that and you'd say on paper Aberdeen have got this one in the bag, but when listening to the likes of Marvin Bartley on Super Scoreboard, and he said that the team's very comfortable not on the ball. So if they're defending, they're very comfortable. They know how to clear it. If they can sort of suffocate Miovski of the service, then you're saying, well, who does it fall to? Well, lately it's been Leighton Clarkson who's been picking up the ball and having a go from range. I don't know, as you say, it could be a totally off game for Aberdeen, could be a totally on game for Livingston. I can't pick between them. I'm going to go with a 1-8 draw on this one, because I would like to say it would be Aberdeen. I like to think that they're coming back, but I just think Livingston's one of those teams this year that are going to cause a few upsets.
I think I'll still give it a good go, but I'm a Dandy, so I've got to go for the Dandies 2-1 win.
How do you break down a team like Livingston? If they're going to play with 10 men behind the ball, with that Aberdeen lineup that you've got there, how do you break them down?
It's a good question.
Where are you going to get the joy from?
I think Bajoon's got a lot of potential tomorrow. I think he could play a pivotal part for Jim Goodwin's side. Miovski, as you touched upon, but Miovski will be the final product. I think Bajoon's got a big point to play. Luis Lopez, for full Sunday name pronunciation, has a big part to play tomorrow. I think he can get in about Waterway areas, and then obviously he can find fellow teammates. Ross McCrory, I think he'll offer a lot of steel. You've obviously got other players that can play a part. Ramirez, even although he's went off the boil, there's a lot of opportunities there. But as you said, they're up against a resolute Livingston backline, and Jim Goodwin will have to go for the attack as the best form in defence. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in there for Aberdeen, and if they can expose Livingston, then there's every chance of getting points tomorrow.
I think that's one of the things about bringing a guy like Jim Goodwin to Pittodrie, considering obviously he had a really good spell before he was at St Mirren, where was it Alloa he was at when they won the league?
Alloa.
And then obviously going to St Mirren, and you're maybe sort of fighting for survival down there. But he had them playing some good football and some attacking football. It's then transitioning that whole mentality to being a team like Aberdeen, who's constantly on the ball, constantly attacking and constantly trying to sort of pick up the 3 points. And dropping points at Pittodrie is a disaster regardless of who they come up against. So I think that might take a bit of time for that mentality shift to come in there. Yeah, I think you spoke about the winger. I don't think he's hit the heights that people have predicted so far this season. I think there's still a lot to come from him, but he's not exactly one who's setting the header alight, similar to Leighton Clarkson's performances so far this season. So if you can get him playing, you've got Hayes on the left-hand side, Clarkson in the middle, it might just be enough to get through that defence, but I'm not 100% sure. That's why I've went with the one each draw.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we have 2 games left to cover, and we're going to head down the Ayrshire coast for Kilmarnock versus Motherwell. Kilmarnock, again, not having the best start to the season so far. They've got 1 point and find themselves bottom. Coming up against the Motherwell side, who's probably been, you would say, the surprise package so far, winning 3 out of their 4 games. They're sitting third in the league so far. Kilmarnock going into this off the back of a 1-0 defeat to Ross County last week. That's followed by 2 results against the either side of the Glasgow derby, 5-0 to Celtic, 2-0 to Rangers. It's only that opening day draw against Dundee United that's given Kilmarnock any really hope so far this season, Dave, and this could be another one where if they don't get the 3 points, then you're really looking at it and saying, where did they get the points from?
Yeah, before I answer your question, you were actually just speaking there and something sprung to mind for me. I think I've got a wee word for the St Johnstone media team, live exclusively on the State of Scottish Football. The press conferences, they do them every Wednesday, Colin. You get them available on Facebook, right? Or social media for any matter of means. And you get this bloody noise. Does my head in, Colin, right? And everyone from St Johnstone's listening to this, rectify it, stop it. It does my nothing. There you go, St Johnstone. There's a word of water for you. But anyway,
and that is Dave banned from St Johnstone press conferences, I'm just hearing. So that's us, Dave. You'll not have to worry about that one going forward. But Spencer Warlock is picking up that you've definitely been working out in the gym, mate. So there you go. There's your compliment in. Although I think Dave may have just froze after that. So thanks for that, Spencer. We'll go through the betting odds just whilst we see if Dave's back in the room. We've got Kilmarnock. We're all good. Kilmarnock are 13-8. The draw is 9-4, and Motherwell are 7-4. So not a lot in this one, according to the bookies. Kilmarnock, they'll be looking to try and get Jordan Jones up and running. Dave, I mean, it's a big signing for them, getting him on loan from Wigan. He could be the one that sort of dictates where they end up this season. If they can link up with Kyle Lafferty up front, who so far has done absolutely nothing. I think if they can get a partnership going between them two, they could get the goals that would keep Kilmarnock up. But at the moment, it's just a struggle for points. If they come away from this game against Motherwell with nothing, their next fixtures are Hibs away, St Johnstone at home, Livingston away, and Aberdeen away. That's, I mean, again, we're talking about Jack Ross being under pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if Derek McInnes was after a couple of games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kilmarnock are a different position to what we've seen over the last few years. I mean, the escape for the Championship against the Valiant, Arbroath, against other sides that didn't exactly show the same quality, and Kilmarnock just scraped through it. And that was despite not having the best of seasons, and Derek McInnes changed fortunes around at Rugby Park. And there's probably a mentality there, that isn't all great, in all honesty. Obviously, the Tommy Leighton, and he had a deep thinking relegation mentality about him, which was never ideal in the slightest. So as far as Kilmarnock were concerned, and I mean, they've had a change with McInnes, and it worked to an extent. That managerial honeymoon period was working, but Kilmarnock have been toiling. They've been erratic. They haven't been excellent by any stretch of imagination, and they do need a point. They do need the points from somewhere. And they signed Ben Christian, I think it's how you pronounce it, from Aston Villa on loan. He is left back. Well, we can not really forward areas, but you touched on Jordan Jones there. He's going to be a big player as far as Kelly are concerned. Obviously, he can get into good areas, but obviously I don't think Kilmarnock should just be having a reliance on Lafferty ever. I think they've got to be looking at Ollie Shaw as well. Now, Ollie Shaw's not a player that will go and score 15, 20 goals for you, but Ollie Shaw is a player that will go and give you a lot of work rate, and he's a player that offers so much variability to the Kilmarnock front line. And I don't think he gets used enough from McChrist. I think Kilmarnock have a good nucleus in terms of defensive midfield, but I think in terms of the forward line, there maybe is too much for reliance on Kyle Lafferty, which is understandable considering how well Kyle Lafferty has done Scottish football terms. But at the same time as well, always shows is around the Scottish football periphery where he's been at Ross County, been at Kilmarnock, been at clubs where they've been in predicaments, they've been in difficult situations. He's been at clubs where they've been up against it, they've been beyond the boundaries expected of them. And always shows always came and banged in a lot of important goals, and I don't think he gets used enough. Kyle Lafferty as well, he's been struggling and went to leave with an injury as well, and that just goes to show you where the options are. But Derek McChrist is renowned for having favouritism about him, and I think this is shown to the game Kilmarnock, and he's got a lot to prove, Derek McChrist. And Ben Carusin, I think it's going to be interesting to see if he goes and plays immediately or if he goes and sits on the bench and then plays his part. It's going to be an interesting one to say the least. But it's another good sign as far as McChrist is concerned, and he's gone down a different route compared to what he was going down in England, because he's gone for loan signs at Aberdeen. He was signing players permanently, so he's gone down a different route at Kilmarnock.
I just wonder how much of that's actually to do with the financial implications of being at Kilmarnock compared to being at Aberdeen, to be fair. Obviously, I know the Kilmarnock board, they really did back the gaffer when he went down into the Championship. Obviously, it didn't work for him. He was kind of let go, and Derek McInnes came in, and they just about got up into the Premiership through, I would say, Arbroath kind of capitulating towards the end of last season, more than Kilmarnock being the dominant team. It's, for me, I'm not 100% sold on Kilmarnock this year. I think even looking at that team, the goalkeeper, he's sort of let them down a couple of times already. He had a fairly decent performance against Celtic, but some other ones he could have really done a lot better. I just look at the bench and I think they've got nothing to bring on if the game isn't going for them. And so far, as you say, Kyle Lafferty, he was hooked at half-time against Ross County. I know you're saying he was injured, but I saw him, he was on the screen at Cole playing Tuesday night, so he's obviously not that injured. And Ollie Shaw, again, his goal record, it's not great. It's not great at all. Motherwell got in this. They're still waiting to hear back from Robert Snodgrass as to whether he'll make the move across the border and join them for this season. And Stevie Hamill saying that he's still waiting to get a couple of players in before the deadline on Thursday, and a couple going out on loan to bring that in. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some loan movement from the Scottish League over to Motherwell. I still think players like Mikey Johnson could potentially make that move to Fir Park. I think Motherwell, they've had a good start to the season. They've proved a lot of people wrong, and another 3 points tomorrow would do wonders as to winning over those that have still not quite got behind the Motherwell train yet.
I think tomorrow's a good sign to see where Motherwell's credentials are at, because they've had a pretty good start under Hamill. They've went to Battle, they went to St Mirren, who are two notoriously tough venues to go to, and picked up 6 points out of 6. And also, they've been consistent at home. St Johnstone was a blur. Motherwell acknowledges that, but they've moved on from that. And I think tomorrow's a good test of Motherwell's credentials, because Kilmarnock are in an erratic place right now. They're not in a good place at all. And it's a good sign to see where Motherwell are at, and an opportunity for them to stake a claim from the rest of the best by getting a good solid victory, and obviously making sure they maintain a fine start to the season, because after tomorrow I think Motherwell have a tough run of games, and for Motherwell momentum's a big thing in football, and if Motherwell can get some more wins, it puts a lot of confidence into the camp prior to them playing Celtic, Rangers, Hearts and Aberdeen's respect. Well, not Aberdeen's, but it puts a lot of confidence prior to playing your Celtics, your Rangers, your Hearts respectively.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Motherwell to sneak this one. I fancy them to get the odd goal here. I'm going to go with Big Van Veen to be the kind of big telling difference between them. I think he will cause them a lot of trouble. I'm going for Motherwell to win 1-0.
Yeah, I fancy 2-0. I fancy Kilmarnock to be opened up on a few occasions.
Yeah, I think Kilmarnock, a lot of work to do between now and Thursday to get themselves back in there, but we'll see how that one goes. That leaves us one game left to cover with 5 games to go. With 5 minutes to go. I'm just going to bring Patrick James Simpson up here. He thinks it's going to be 1-0 to the Well. Who's News expects it to be a score draw. Let us know any other of your predictions. Yep, that's all we've got so far. Look, heading to Paisley, not my favourite city, but here we go. It's St Mirren versus Hibs. Hibs coming off the back of that 2-each draw at Easter Road, a very eventful 2-each draw, as we can all say. Andy are looking for a new goalkeeper after an injury to Dabrowski in training means he'll be out for 2 months. So it does look as if that Lee Johnson's going to have to bring in another goalkeeper. St Mirren had a sort of fairly decent start to the season. Two wins and 2 draws. Obviously, the last 2 games have been victories over Ross County and Dundee United, scoring 4, conceding none after losing to Motherwell and St Mirren on the opening days. We've made a lot out about Declan Gallagher and his move to St Mirren this summer. He kind of proved us wrong there at the weekend. He had a very good performance against Dundee United. What can you say? Stephen Robinson seems to get the best out of him.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Declan Gallagher put in a very astute performance last Saturday at Tannadice, and a very accomplished performance indeed. I mean, the likes of your Tony Watts, your Glenn Millertons, your Jamie McGraths, your Stephen Fletchers didn't even stand a chance against the likes of Gallagher and the back line that St Mirren had. But also, what a game Carter Smith had last weekend. I noticed he was I noticed he had an article in the Daily Record. I noticed he spoke at the press after the game, and he was touching upon the fact that he got some surgery got done on him in the summer, Carter Smith, and that seems to have what had done him the world of good. I think it was an issue he had in the stomach area. That was the problem, and he's obviously got that sorted out and rectified, and he's came back a new man, fitness orientated now, obviously a new man on and off the park, and he's also scoring the goals. And when you look at Curtis Main, the fact that he scored 2 goals, you'd look at it and go, shock, absolute shock. But it was just a sign of where he's going. He's a Stephen Robinson type of player, and he was massive for St Mirren last weekend and got them a very deserved 3-0 victory. And obviously, Alex Craig got them the decisive third with that finish, which I don't think Ericsson covered himself in full glory from, in all honesty, but a very good victory. A sign where St Mirren are at just now, because they've shown how they can go to a tough place at Paris and go and win, and they've shown how they can beat Ross County 1-0. So they're in a very good place right now. St Mirren, that's a terrific opportunity to get 3 wins out of 3. They're playing the Hibs side that are going okay. They're nothing exciting, nothing spectacular. At the same time as well, they can always possess their own threats. So it's going to be an intriguing game, but I think it's a terrific opportunity. And St Mirren 3 wins out of 3. That was some going, especially with all the talk that's came their way, especially during pre-season. As for Hibs, they could obviously rely on like some Martin Boyle, and I think they showed a lot of character last weekend, brought 2 apiece with the Rangers, and nobody you continue that this weekend. And they've had a pretty disappointing Premier Sports Cup campaign, so a week's the opportunity for them to make it their own bread and bar, get some big results, and get them a good statement heading into before the World Cup stages, where they can go and create their own impression and things. And the draw last weekend stood them a good confidence, and I still don't think the Hibs have found their best, strongest 11 yet. At the same time as well, Hibs are looking at games and creating their own authority and get some much needed results against these teams. So if Hibs can find a good balance, they'll be in a good position.
I think it was very bold from Lee Johnson to make the double substitution after 28 minutes last week. And I don't think it necessarily worked out for him right away. Obviously, Rangers scoring on the stroke of half-time from what was a ridiculous penalty. I mean, that's never a penalty in my opinion. Tom Lawrence then adding a second after Martin Boyle had equalised, but it didn't really get going for Hibs until that second half. So I think you're right. I do think Lee Johnson's still to find his best 11. He's also still to find his best formation, in my opinion, as well. He went to a 4 when they changed after the 28-minute mark, taking off Ewan Henderson, bringing on Christian Doidge, and then bringing on, is it Cabrera, the left back?
Cabrera, yeah, what you said second time.
Yeah, he's very good. But, I mean, I think you're going to see someone like Kenny coming back into that Hibs midfield to add that sort of strength and depth. Henderson will probably stay out the team. Campbell, fantastic strike the other day. I could see him staying in. Doyle Hayes, he was subbed off. Cadden still got a bit to prove in this league again as well. The back three, Paul Hanlon, he's the one that seems to get a lot of sort of praise, but then was taken off after 28 minutes. Ryan Porteous still for me doesn't impress. I think there's still some very naivety, so much of naivety about Ryan Porteous. And Rocky Bashiri, you could write a song about his kind of failings that he's had so far. David Marshall as well. I guess I'll put that down to him not having a steady back 3 or 4 in front of him yet. So there's a lot of potential in this Hibs team, but is Lee Johnson the guy that's going to get the best out of them? For me, that's yet to be determined. And then going into this, just as we hit the hour mark, I think Hibs really should pick up the 3 points here. And if they don't, questions will start to get asked. So for me, I think that sort of mentality, as you say, the sort of keeping the happiness going from getting that late equaliser against Rangers, I'm going to go with Hibs to win 2-1.
I'm going to be biased towards St Mirren to an extent and go for a 1-each draw. I think it's even Steven.
I couldn't disagree with that either, to be honest. When you look at it, I don't know. Ron Gordon's obviously going to be very open, as he has been since he took over Hibs on the management position. He's not shy to get rid of a manager if he thinks he's underperforming. And Lee Johnson doesn't necessarily have the best track record behind him, so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes at Easter Road. I don't know. There's a couple of managers, and we're only 4 or 5 games into the season, where you're thinking, if you don't get the next couple of days right with this transfer market, then there's every chance that your jacket is on that sugary peg.
There we go. Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Johnson needs some results immediately. And if he gets that, well done. He's obviously pushed off a few doubters, but if he goes against a few defeats, it's what do we do here?
Yeah, that's not the first time that's been done in Easter Road. Look, we have covered all 6 games, so a big thank you to everyone who has joined us on this Friday evening. We are predicting for this weekend Celtic to beat Dundee United, Rangers to beat Ross County. We're also going for Hearts to beat St Johnstone. I fancy Aberdeen Livi to finish a draw. Dave's went for a Livingston victory. Is that right? No? Aberdeen victory?
I went for 2-1 Aberdeen.
I wrote that down wrong. I thought that. I didn't think you would put Aberdeen to get beat. So 2-1 for Aberdeen. We've both gone for victories for Motherwell at Kilmarnock, and Dave's went for a draw at the Smiza Stadium, and I've went for Hibs to pick up 3 points. So let's see how those predictions go over the weekend. Again, if you are putting a coupon on this weekend, please gamble responsibly. And let us know on Monday how your predictions go. We'll be back on Monday with Glenn and Graham as they look back on another fantastic weekend. I'm sure it will be of cinch Premiership action. On behalf of myself and Dave, thank you very much for joining us on this Friday evening. Have a good weekend, take care, and as always, stay safe.